What if I told you America's economy was reshaped this year like never before since the 1930s? One decision, one policy, sent shockwaves through global trade, disrupted markets, and impacted your wallet. Today we're breaking down how President Trump overturned decades of U.S. trade policy in 2025, using 4 revealing charts to explain its effect, from soaring tariffs to changing supply chains and rising prices. Stick around, because the impact is huge for jobs, markets, and everyday Americans. And if you get something new from this video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights. When Donald Trump returned to the White House in January 2025, he didn't just inherit trade policy, he appended it. For decades, U.S. policy leaned toward lower tariffs and cooperative trade agreements. That changed fast. Trump implemented massive tariffs on goods from nearly every major trading partner. Trade agreements focused on reducing barriers were replaced with protectionism. Tariffs became tools to punish, pressure, and protect. Trade with China, Mexico, Canada, and Europe was suddenly on edge. Critics called it a trade war mode, while supporters said it was putting America first. Here's how we'll break it down today. Effective U.S. tariff rate. How high did it really go? Tariff revenue versus trade deficit. Did it pay off? Import shifts. Winners and losers among trade partners. Market and everyday impact. What Americans actually felt. The first chart shows the effective tariff rate, the average tax on imported goods entering the U.S., factoring in reroutes and workarounds. In January 2025, tariffs were modest. By April, the rate soared to a peak not seen since the 1930s, and by November it hovered around 17%, 7 times higher than at the year's start. Why this matters? Higher tariffs don't just affect foreign producers, American businesses and consumers pay the cost. Electronics, appliances, and car parts all became more expensive. Consumers ended up paying more for everyday goods. Remember, tariffs may sound like taxes on other countries, but they often function as taxes on you. The second chart asks, did tariffs pay off financially? Trump argued that higher tariffs would. Heavy checkmark reduce the U.S. trade deficit. Heavy checkmark bring manufacturing jobs home. Heavy checkmark boost government revenue. Tariff revenue. By November, tariffs had brought in over $236 billion, more than previous years but still only a fraction of federal revenue. Trade deficit. The gap between exports and imports narrowed from $136.4 billion in March to $52.8 billion in September, but remained 17% higher than 2024 overall. The takeaway: tariffs generated revenue and temporarily compressed the trade deficit, but higher consumer costs and corporate expenses offset gains. Chart 3 shows who felt the impact. China. Imports fell nearly 25% in the first 3 quarters due to tariffs around 47.5% on Chinese goods. Mexico, Vietnam, Taiwan. Imports rose as companies rerouted supply chains to avoid tariffs. Mexico benefited from proximity, while Vietnam became a low-cost alternative. Canada. Exports to the U.S. dropped due to reciprocal tariffs and policy uncertainties. Key point: trade doesn't stop, it redirects. Multinationals adapted, but smaller businesses faced higher costs and less flexibility. The fourth chart connects policy to real-world effects. Stock markets. The S&P 500 saw its most volatile daily swings during tariff announcements. Consumer prices, goods heavily impacted by tariffs, electronics, furniture and appliances, rose sharply. Household impact. One estimate suggests tariffs added $1,200 per U.S. household in 2025. Your grocery bill, car, or electronics purchase likely felt the pinch. Tariffs may look like macro-level policy, but the effect hits everyday Americans directly. Heavy checkmark more government revenue. Heavy checkmark pressure on countries with unfair practices. Heavy checkmark growth in specific domestic industries. Critics warn. Prohibited higher consumer prices. Prohibited retaliation and trade wars. Prohibited market instability. The truth: the policies shifted trade patterns and raised revenue, but created volatility and higher costs for Americans. So what's the bottom line? In 2025, Trump's tariffs didn't just tweak trade policy, they rewrote it. Record-high tariffs, redirected trade, rising prices, the effects touched every corner of the economy. Whether you see it as bold leadership or reckless risk-taking, the charts tell the story: winners, losers, and real consequences for American families. If this breakdown helped you understand the impact, smash that like button, subscribe for more deep dive analyses, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video.